Town. I come from the same town as Raphael. I only found out this year. So when I was doing high school, I always wanted to do science. So that's what my strengths are. I can't deal with arts and history and literature. That's not who I am and what I can do. When I grew up, I wanted to actually study chemistry. After high school, I was quite good at chemistry, and I told my dad I'm going to be a chemistry teacher. I want to do chemistry and be at university. He asked me one very practical question. Will you get a job in Malaysia with this degree? I thought about it, so probably not the best option for me to do that. So I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided to follow a lot of my friends and went to Otago University. So I did first year of health science. It's a great city, great student life, great partying. I really enjoyed my time there because it was again a challenge for me to go to a different city. I grew up in Christchurch for high school, and I went there, lived by myself, and get my own, quite independent and live with friends. The problem was at the end of that year, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I had two choices, pharmacy or medical school. So at the end of my first year, I got into all the subjects from health science. But I wanted only two of them because dentistry was too boring for me. I found that if I dealt with teeth every single day of my life, it's probably not my thing. So I grew up in a Christian family. When I came to New Zealand, I left God. I walked away from God. I was basically by myself. Okay? My brother and I were still called myself Christians, but when we went back to Malaysia, I think this changed my life because I feel that God was still guiding me back then. So I decided to go to a youth camp. All my friends went to Malaysia, so I said, hey, come to camp. So as a good friend, I went to a church camp back in Malaysia. And that's when I actually felt that God still loved me and still guided me. Didn't understand what it meant until now. Because at the very last day of the camp, the guest pastor asked, do you have anything to pray for? I said, yes, I can't decide what to do. I have a month to go before I choose which one I want to do. He had a prophecy for me when we were praying. He said, you'll be standing on an altar, holding a knife, and you'll be saving thousands of lives. I didn't actually know what that meant. I only knew a pharmacy didn't have a knife. So I decided to choose medical school. So I actually didn't know what this whole prophecy meant until many, many years ago. Because until I was a reborn Christian. And through medical school, this is what you always think about. We have lots of diagrams looking at this, how to decide what you become when you become a doctor. Medical school is the start. And then you go, I'm socially quite good, I like operating, I like people, and you just decide what you want to do. And again, I could not decide a specialty, but I know what I didn't want to do. I enjoyed this the most. So I enjoyed surgery, but there are 9 different specialties for surgery in Australasia. So there's heart surgery, bowel surgery, bone surgery, head and neck. So I knew I wanted to operate. I knew I liked operating and cutting things. But I didn't know what specialty I had. And back then, I considered myself Christian, but I didn't go to church. And when I went to Gisborne after I left Christchurch Hospital, this is a French general surgeon in Gisborne. He's my first mentor. He inspired me to become a general surgeon because of how he acted to patients and how he interacted with patients and how he behaved as a surgeon. Made me want to be like him. And thank God that I met him because I knew what my goal was, but I didn't know how my journey was going to be, because that was the start of my journey. So to explain how I got to where I am now, so to be a surgeon in Australasia, after you graduate, you become 2 or 3 years of a junior doctor. And then you become what we call registrars or 住院医师 or residents for at least 1 year to however long you may be until you get onto a training program. So after you get onto the training program, you have 5 years of training. And then you move hospitals for me 3 to 4 times a year. This is the 3rd hospital I have been in the last 3 years. And then the last year of you set a big exam, and then they make sure you're safe to be a surgeon and to be by yourself. And after you graduate, you have 2 or 3 years of subspecialization training, mostly overseas. And then you become a specialist. So this is the journey that most people would take to be a surgeon. Unfortunately, when I got onto interview, I basically didn't get on the first time. And I said, okay, this is only my first time, I'm still young, I'll be okay. The biggest surprise I had was when I moved from Rotorua to Auckland, I didn't like research. I hated research. I felt that what you do for a higher degree or for PhD is, when you're not good at being a doctor, you do research. That's what I thought when I was doing this. But thank God I met, again he let me meet, this is Adam Bartlett, he's a liver transplant surgeon in Auckland. So Juan Gan, he's the surgeon in Auckland. They only do it in Auckland. I met him when I was working for him. He asked me one question, he said, do you want to do a PhD with me? This is what I hated all along when I went through medical school. I've talked to my wife, or my wife now, girlfriend then, and my colleagues and my seniors, and they say, if you want to do well in surgery, you should do a research. So I ended up doing a PhD. Took 3.5 years off work to do full-time research. Research was harder than my actual work, because of how much work you have to do when you go home, and how much work you have to put in when you write up your thesis. But it actually allowed me to stay in the same city for 5 years. If I got into the training scheme, I'll be moving around the country for at least 3 or 4 years. God used this opportunity to bring me back to church. I grew up in a church. I went back to church in Auckland, to a Kiwi church. And I got to stay in the same city. I got to travel because I didn't have to work. So I can plan my own holidays. And I got married in the same year, in my first year when I started my PhD. So after 7 years of 3.5 years of full-time and 3.5 years of part-time, I finally graduated last year with PhD. So that was when after I got into a training program. So that's my parents, they came over from Malaysia, and it's in Auckland. So how do I get from becoming a researcher to become what I'm here right now? When I went for my interview after I went back to work, I'm not very good at public speaking or interview. So I prayed the night before at Wellington Airport, because that's where the conference was, there's a motel next to it. God gave me this verse. When Moses asked him, I can't speak, why should I go to the Pharaoh? God gave me this verse when I went to the interview. Now go, I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what to say. So that reassured me throughout my whole interview. And to be a surgeon, you have to work long hours. Okay, you can work from up to 15 hours a day to 22 hours a day. And you work the next day as well. So I start at 7:30 in the morning. Last night I finished at 12. And at 4 o'clock in the morning I get called up to wake up and to see a patient. And that's what a surgeon's life is. The problem was I actually enjoy working hard and working long hours. Because I get to do cool operations, and hopefully everyone's okay. That's the appendix, 盲肠. This is 内视镜, this is a 胆包 and the liver, 肝. 这个是肝手术. So this is what I want to become when I grow up, is to be a liver transplant surgeon, which is a long hours, but unfortunately for my wife, that's what I enjoy, because I'll be spending a lot of time in hospital. And this is how I've traveled around the country. I grew up in Christchurch, I've lived in Gisborne, Dunedin, Rotorua, and moved to Auckland for about 6 years. I got baptized again when I was in Auckland. God used this opportunity when I was doing my PhD to settle down in Auckland, to be able to go to church and to have a wonderful small group and to be baptized again. Without that time, I would not have been a Christian I am today. And I went to Palmerston North for my first year of training. That's my landlord and my neighbor getting married, and that's work. And this is our neighbor's cat. He spends more time in our house than the neighbor's house. And then last year I went to Rotorua, and I could say I was a reborn Christian, but I was never as passionate for Christ or as into church as I am now. But last year in Rotorua, we went to a small Chinese church in Rotorua, 生命 Church. So there are about 40 people in church. They have no pastors. They've got about 3 couples, so 3 families that serve for the church. So the 3 of them there actually organize praise and worship, prayer meetings, organize the announcements, the PA system, and Sunday school. So 6 to 8 of them, do every single Sunday, every week for the last few years. They don't have a pastor yet. And that's when their family, a farewell dinner last year, before we left Rotorua. And obviously, we came back to Christchurch because my in-laws and us mum lives in Christchurch. We thought we'll come back to Christchurch. When I started working in Christchurch, I didn't like Christchurch Hospital. So I left Christchurch because the culture and the environment is not very good for a Chinese or an Asian. They are, to use a different word, they are quite racist. Back then, they're actually a lot better now, but we thought because we have an opportunity to come back to live in a city with our in-laws, with Anna's mum. So we came back to Christchurch for a year. And obviously we found this wonderful church, and wonderful to have an opportunity to serve with you all, and also be able to have a new wonderful building. And I thank Pastor for having a wonderful church for us when we grew up here. And I'll be here for the 2nd year next year. So this is the first time we have not had to move a city for the last 4 years. And then I have to move end of next year. I'll probably be going back to Auckland before going overseas. It's a struggle. Hours. A lot of my classmates have become specialists or consultants. They probably know what they wanted to do when they started medical school and finished, and they said, I want to be this specialist. I'm going to be this by age, whatever. So it took me a long while to get to where I am now, but God has used this every single step, every single year to make me grow as a person, and also as me grow as a husband, and also someone in church as a Christian. And obviously long hours. Okay. The longest hours I've worked is actually 36 hours without sleep. You just worked overnight and then you go work the next day, and you sleep that same night. And also work-life balance. That's the hardest part for a surgeon, is the amount of hours we stay in hospital. And when you go home at about midnight, I just want to sleep. So I say hi to my wife for 20 minutes and half an hour. And I go to sleep, and I wake up the next day and go to work again. So that's the hardest part for us, and I thank God that I have a supportive wife that allows me to do what I'm doing, because she's quite independent and she's okay with me being at work for so long. In conclusion, God has given me a lot of freedom. I got to choose where I go, I got to choose what I wanted to do. But God's timing is always perfect. He's never let me down, He's never abandoned me where I grow up. And He's always allowed me to become the best I can be. And I've always said, important people happen because of God. The French surgeon left Gisborne the year I went there. And my friend, both of my good friends of mine, Adam came back to New Zealand from overseas the year I went to Auckland. So God's timing is perfect, because if I didn't go there at that specific year, I would not have met them, I would not have become what I become now. So my old pastor used to say, it is not a coincidence things happen in your life. It is a God incidence, because God has planned it when you were born. And I know there's high school students or kids here. I always give advice to medical students. If you want to become a doctor for money, for status, or for fame, I would advise you not to go into med school. There's a lot more other special things to do if you want money or fame without the stress. To me, I do what I do because I enjoy it. And you have to enjoy what you do. You have to be able to wake up in the morning and say, I like what I do, I like my job. Because if you wake up and you say, it's another day, don't go to work. You will have to find what you're passionate in and what you like. Because if you don't like it, you have to work for the next 10, 20, 30 years before you retire. You might as well find something you enjoy. And if you do med school or medicine for the high school kids here, just because your parents taught you to, or because you want to earn money, that's not the right reason to get into medical school. If you went to medical school with that, my friends, they've hated it. They dropped out of med school. Even when they finish, they do something else. Just because their parents, mostly Asians, the parents want them to become a doctor because that's what the families always wanted. That's what they wanted to be. But if you went to med school to do that because of your parents or because of peer pressure, please don't. Obviously pray very hard, but do something you enjoy. You can always find something you enjoy and that can please God and please your parents. And for my PhD, I always struggled because, like I said, I hated research. I struggled a lot of times, and this is actually in front of my thesis. You can write a front page of your thesis and you say a word of thanks. I thank my family, my wife, my family, but most importantly, I thank God because this verse has kept me going for my whole PhD. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And that's what God is there for you. Thank you.